Welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving straight into one of the most wild historical anomalies I've ever come across. It's exactly what the title says. He was offered the throne, but he hated the flag. You know, we constantly hear stories about people doing literally whatever it takes to reach the top, right? Lying, cheating, completely compromising their deepest beliefs just for a tiny taste of power. But what happens when the absolute highest authority in the land is handed to you on a silver platter and you look at it, shake your head, and say, yeah, no thanks, the decor's wrong? That's exactly the dramatic story we're unpacking today. We're looking at a singular, almost unbelievable choice between unimaginable power and deep-rooted tradition.
To really wrap our heads around this, imagine something for a second. Imagine you're offered the CEO position of a massive global corporation. The salary? Unlimited. The power is absolute. You've got the corner office, the private jets, the whole shebang. It is the ultimate job. But right before you sign on the dotted line, the board of directors hands you the company polo shirt. You look down, and you absolutely despise the company logo. Would you turn down the job? Honestly, you probably wouldn't. You'd throw the shirt on and cash the check. But what if that logo represented everything your family had fought against for generations? What if wearing it felt like a total betrayal of your own soul? Would you still put it on?
That little scenario brilliantly illustrates the exact psychological dilemma we're exploring. On one side, we have the regal crown, the literal embodiment of ultimate power, vast wealth, and intense historical significance. On the other side, a simple piece of cloth, a flag. We're talking about trading the leadership of one of the most powerful nations on Earth for a personal deal breaker woven out of fabric. It sounds completely absurd to our modern ears, doesn't it? But as we navigate through this, you're going to see exactly why this seemingly crazy decision made perfect, unbreakable sense to the man at the center of it all. Section 1. The ultimate power offer. Let's set the stage in 1870s France. So, in 1870s France, following a totally disastrous defeat in the Franco-Prussian War and the fall of Napoleon III, the nation was in absolute turmoil. A massive power vacuum just opened right up, and the country was desperately trying to figure out its future. The Royalists actually held the political majority at this point, and they decided it was time to bring a king back to restore some order and prestige. A vacant throne emerges, and the crown is officially offered to a man named Henri, the Comte de Chambord. Now, Henri is the legitimate heir. He has spent his entire life waiting for this exact moment. Suddenly, he finds himself standing on the absolute precipice of becoming King of France. It's a done deal. The papers are practically drawn up. But then we hit a massive, unexpected roadblock. Which brings us to Section 2, one bizarre deal breaker. This is where the shocking twist happens. Right as Henri was about to take the throne, he dropped a condition literally no one saw coming. See, the government was completely ready to crown him, but France had evolved. They wanted a modern monarchy, one that respected the nation as it was in the 1870s. Henri, however, had a very different vision of what his return actually meant. He instituted a massive, completely non-negotiable deal breaker. He flat out refused to rule under the French tricolor flag. Think about the tricolor for a second. The blue, white, and red. It's the iconic symbol of France. It was born during the French Revolution. But to Henri, taking the throne meant taking it on his terms, completely and totally. He demanded that the nation abandon its established national flag if they wanted him as their king. Let's break down this visual clash, because this is where the real drama lies. You have the French tricolor representing modern France, the revolution, progress, the whole 9 yards. And stacked right against it is Henri's demand. The plain white Bourbon flag. This was the flag of his ancestors, the flag of the ancient kings of France before the revolution completely swept them away. He was essentially forcing the entire nation into a corner, asking them to choose between their hard-won modern identity and his ancient royal heritage. He basically told them, look, if I'm going to be your king, we have to pretend the revolution never even happened. Section 3. The weight of symbolism. Why anyone would make this choice over a piece of cloth. It's incredibly easy to sit here today and just call him foolish. But to really understand why anyone would throw away a literal kingdom over cloth, we have to step into his shoes. Think of a flag like a nation's operating system. It tells you everything about the core values running beneath the surface. To Henri, that plain white flag wasn't just some piece of fabric. It represented centuries of unbroken Bourbon tradition, divine right, and the pure, untainted legacy of his family. The tricolor, on the other hand, represented a violent, bloody fracture in that history. It was the flag flown by the exact people who had overthrown and in some cases executed his ancestors. Embracing the Tricolor just to get the crown would mean validating the very revolution that destroyed his family's world. So it wasn't just a simple political negotiation. It was a deeply personal choice between ultimate worldly power and unshakable inner principle. And that brings us to the ultimate distillation of his stance. No white flag, no king. This perfectly sums up the absolute legendary stubbornness of his position. He drew a line in the sand and flat out refused to cross it. The government begged him, his allies pleaded with him, they offered all sorts of compromises, but Henri wouldn't budge an inch. If he couldn't rule under the pure white flag of his ancestors, well, he wouldn't rule at all. He effectively held his own coronation hostage over a symbol. Let's move to our final section, power versus tradition, Henri's ultimate choice. In the end, Henri held firm. The French Parliament realized there was absolutely no way they could force the nation to give up the tricolor, so they just moved on. They abandoned the idea of restoring the monarchy entirely. Henri threw away the French crown forever, and France solidified its path forward as a republic. Which leaves us with this final lingering thought to close out today's explainer. What would you sacrifice for your principles? When we look back at Henri, the Comte de Chambord, it acts like a fascinating psychological mirror. Was he a fool who threw away a literal kingdom because he was just too stubborn to adopt the modern world? Or was he a man of profound, unshakable integrity? Someone who knew exactly who he was and refused to sell his soul, even for the highest price imaginable. Think about your own life. What's your ultimate prize? And what core belief would you walk away from it for, just to keep your conscience clean? It's a heavy question and one that Henri answered unequivocally in the 1870s. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I hope this sparks some great reflection for you.